I still see direct selling as the most rewarding and fundamentally financially sound approaches to being an entrepreneur, to being an independent business owner.
Well, hey there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and it's my absolute privilege and honor not only to host this podcast for you, but also to bring in and listen to some incredible individuals from all over the globe who are just as passionate about the direct selling industry as I am. And today is absolutely no exception. I am honored to introduce you today to a very special individual, Tyler Whitehead. Now, you may have heard Tyler's name thrown around in this industry before, and that would be for good reason. Tyler has got over 22 years of experience as a direct selling executive in the industry. Both as a corporate, he has worked with companies such as Arbonne International, New Skin, and many others. And whilst Tyler is not currently working with a company at the moment, he has got some exciting pending news, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about in 2024. But for now, one of the things to know about Tyler as we go into this interview and you get to listen on in to the conversation that we had is he is incredibly passionate about what this industry does for the individual, about how it impacts lives, that being your life. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more from him around where this industry is going, what makes it so special, and how we keep capturing that as we move into this new season of technology and change. Tyler is also very invested in where this industry is going as a whole, serving on the board of both the DSA as well as the World Federation of Direct Selling and the Council for Responsible Nutrition. You're going to hear a little bit more from Tyler around a little bit of the undercurrent of conversations that have been going on through some of those organizational bodies that are overseeing this industry for you. But what I do want to point out as we go into this chat and you listen on in is that each and every one of us has a huge part to play in both the growth and the sustainability of this incredible industry that is impacting lives every single day. If you're sitting there thinking, hey, I'm just little old me who's running my little old business and, I can't do a whole lot to impact this industry, I want you to stop and think again, because the impact that you have, how you affect the reputation of this industry as a whole, and where we can take this industry into 2024, you've got plenty of power here. And I know that listening into this conversation with Tyler will inspire you, but also give you some hope and encouragement that we are on the cusp of some really exciting things. So that's it from me. You're here to listen to Tyler today, so I'm going to hand over to the interview now. Grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, sit back and relax, and enjoy the interview. Introducing Tyler Whitehead. Well, welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I am so excited to be welcoming on in our very special guest, Tyler Whitehead. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tyler.
Thank you, Sam. It's great to be with you.
I'm super excited about this chat, Tyler. I know we've had a chance to catch up already and have a little bit of a talk about where this conversation will go today. And to be perfectly honest, this is a conversation I've wanted to have for a really long time, and no better person to have this conversation with, but someone who's got 22 years or over 22 years in the direct selling industry. Do you want to, tell us a little bit about your extensive history in this industry and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That's a great question. A good way to start, I think, to get to know a little bit about what I find in the industry so special. I started off my career as an attorney in private practice and found myself spending my days in 6-minute increments, working on a lot of different companies and projects, mostly in mergers and acquisitions and investment banking and the typical kind of professional route to a career. And after about 10 years of that, I had the opportunity to start working for some clients who were in the direct selling industry. And it seemed to me that they were having a lot more fun in their projects and in their work. And particularly, they were working to empower other people. And everything that they did, the culture and the product sets that they put together and the compensation plans that were associated with it, they were all designed to work as a system and work as a unique environment to create opportunity and empower other people. And when I saw the amount of, both fun that they were having and the good that they were doing in that industry, I was really attracted and really intrigued, because my foundational values have always taught me to try and serve and to try and help other people. And so this was a way of combining a business and really a professional endeavor as an executive and as a manager with that service orientation. So for me, it really is truly personal, and it really is something that to me lines up very closely with my purpose in life, which I believe is helping and serving others. So it's always been a learning experience, and I continue to grow and learn. And but I've found even through my service of many, many different companies and different clients, and particularly the last 22 years, as you say, in direct selling specifically, that there's no better mix between finding that purposeful mission and a business orientation. And they come together so well in direct selling, Sam, as you know. Being around the industry and around different companies, it's really a powerful combination, and it just led me to my foundational career, which is working in direct selling and supporting people and empowering people through those kinds of platforms. So it's really a work of love and also a work of ongoing development for me. I'm still learning, trying to figure it out. I think I've been in it a little while, but every time I get to be around some of the greats, I learn and develop more, really more love and more appreciation for how good the foundational aspects of the model can be.
Yeah. And look, I've actually loved listening to you over the years. I've had the opportunity to hear you speak at the Direct Selling Association conference in Australia, also in the US, and the passion that you have for the industry, really shines through. But particularly the passion that you have for the field in whichever company that you've worked with, and that perfect marriage between corporate but also supporting the field and having that relationship between the two. When we first connected, you were working with New Skin. You then obviously went to work with Arbonne, and I'd love to hear a little bit about what's happening for you now, because you've finished up as CEO with Arbonne. However, the overarching question here is: are you staying in the industry, and where's Tyler going to end up in 2024?
Right now, I am definitely committed to staying in direct selling. Working on a couple of projects currently, which I haven't yet been ready to announce. Working with a couple of businesses, but definitely in direct selling. And you'll see me reemerge in 2024 with that new venture and in a new role in a new environment in direct selling. And I guess what I would say is that I'm looking to innovate and bring really all of the amazing components of direct selling into the future. And that will definitely involve and require a business that's based on the channel participation. It's based on consultants as the fundamental building block, what I call the value creation engine of a direct selling enterprise. And so that's what I'm working on. It's a great project. I'm super excited. I'm hoping that I'll be able to announce something in the next 60 or 90 days as we get ready to launch in 2024. But look for that just a few weeks, and maybe you can have me back on and I'll share all the details.
I feel like we should have started this off with a wine, and I could have, done a bit of a shakedown to try and get some information out of you. It sounds very intriguing, Tyler, and I can't wait to hear what's happening, and I'm sure our listeners can't either. So we'll stay tuned for that. But yeah, we might have to get you back on to tell us a bit about what's going on. And I love that you talk about innovation, because this is definitely a direction I wanted to go with today. One of the things that I really notice, when hearing you speak and chatting with you, is that you're constantly looking at evolving, and particularly evolving, the industry, first of all, not just to help it to survive, but to thrive. And, one of the things that we're hearing a lot about, at the moment, there's this big undercurrent, a lot of conversation about this. And I think a lot of confusion as well for our listeners who don't necessarily get to be part of the corporate or industry body conversations around the gig economy, but they're hearing this, talk about the gig economy and the fact that it's impacting our industry and it's going to continue impacting our industry. And I thought, I know this is something that you and I got to chat a little bit about. I know it's definitely something that you are obviously very familiar with. Maybe it'd be a really great opportunity to get you to explain a little bit more about, hey, what is the gig economy? How is this thing impacting our industry? And, how will we see continual change happening into the future as, we go into 2024 with the gig economy in, I guess, conjunction with the direct selling industry?
People use terms like disruption and, the environmental change that's happening at a very fast pace. And that really relates to the way people work. And that's the easiest way for me to explain, or for me to try and get my mind around the gig economy. It really is just different elements of the way people work. And traditionally, our direct selling environment has been one of the very few opportunities that people could seize upon to work from home and to be able to make income from home. And the gig economy is simply a way where combining technology with that remote working, or with an opportunity that can be done through a screen, performed tasks, or opportunity to interact with other people, or be a salesperson for a company. I myself, over the last 2 or 3 years, as a CEO of a multi-$100 million companies, have worked from home in my basement, where I'm at right now. And so that, I think, is one example of that changing way people work. So the gig economy, to me, Sam, is just simply that different manner of working. And what that has done in terms of the direct selling industry is it's created competition. It's created other opportunities for people to make part-time income, have flexibility, work from home. And so it's one of those things that has disrupted, to some extent, those opportunities. But it is also, and for every disruption, there's an equal and opposite, I think, opportunity. And in the direct selling side, it's to show people the value that comes with a culture and an environment of support and an environment of personal development and actual skill building versus turning a task.
Yep.
And many of the gig economy workers are people who are cranking a crank, and they might be, doing word processing, or they might be answering telephone calls, but they're missing out on those critical components in direct sales, which are having a team environment and actually learning new skills. And most importantly, building your own business and building something that you can have equity in terms of that future growth and potential that you have, both personally and financially. And those are very, very big differentiators between the gig economy, in my view, and what is available in direct sales. So while direct selling is being disrupted, and we have to face that, and at the corporate level and in the boardrooms, that's something we talk about quite a bit. How do we remain competitive? And to me, one of the fundamental ways to do that is by highlighting the differences and the advantages of a direct selling gig, if you will, against some of these other turning tasks types of endeavors, where, yes, you can make $15 or $20 an hour or $25 an hour for your time, but you're really just trading your money for time and very little else. Yeah. So those are, and that's just one of the areas. And so when we talk about innovation, it's how do we make sure that people understand the value associated with a direct selling enterprise, and more importantly, Sam, make those the highlights of what we're marketing and what we're sharing, and how we provide people to understand this is very, very attractive when you compare those things. Just one thought, Sam, as I think back on my career 15 or 20 years ago, we had a similar conversation about comparing two different things. In those days, what we would compare would be, in some ways, starting your own business, or a lot of times we would talk about franchises, or we would talk about the comparison between, you could buy a franchise and here's all the thing with a franchise, or you could have a job and you talk about all the things associated with having a job, or you can have a direct selling business. And I really look at today's conversation about the gig economy, and you framed it really well, where what's the difference, or is there a difference, or are we trying to make a direct selling enterprise into gig work? And I really see it differently than that. I see it about understanding and highlighting the real benefits of a direct selling way of working versus some of the gig economy ways of working that are becoming popular, and in some ways look like they have some of the features and benefits of a direct sales enterprise, but they're really missing some of the key components. So my job and my role in the industry is to really help people understand that distinction. Yeah. And when it's all listed out and you compare and contrast, I still see direct selling as the most rewarding and fundamentally financially sound approaches to being an entrepreneur, to being an independent business owner, to being really the master of your own destiny, if you will, when it comes to how do I manage my life and how do I make an economic opportunity in terms of my time and my lifestyle and the things that go along with it.
Yeah, it's a great explanation. And, where I think I have heard the gig economy thrown around the most would be in conjunction with companies such as, Uber and Airbnb. And this was sort of when this became the big thing was, hey, anyone can start their own business just by, joining Uber or, renting out a room in your house. And, and then this comparison started with the industry because suddenly it was another way to work from home using things you already have. But the bottom line is, as you said, this industry is very much so about the culture. And I think what makes it so powerful and so incredible is that community element, which you just don't get from some of these other organizations and opportunities. And so, as you've just said, it's not really comparable, is it? It's the one thing that's comparable is you can do it from home with very little overheads. You don't need, huge outlay of income or even knowledge or experience to start a business in the direct selling industry or, other, gig economy style opportunities such as Airbnb and Uber and all of this sort of stuff. But the bottom line is you just simply don't get that incredible culture that we have. And that's the thing I think we're fighting so hard to keep, because there's lots of opportunity to pass that, to sort of move past that. And we've seen that through COVID. I think this was the really scary thing watching from, the outside, was a lot of companies were starting to think, well, it's too hard to get together. It's too hard to have conferences. It's too hard to have events. Maybe because of the way that the world's going, we should give up on that and, hey, save that expense because, other organizations don't need to do that to be successful. But the bottom line is that is what makes our industry so special and unique. And it's really great to see many companies starting to really re-embrace doing that and pushing the in-person side of things. I don't know if you've observed this, but certainly from our perspective, because we keynote speak at many of these events, we've noticed that even the hybrid side of things is starting to drop off a little bit more. And the encouragement to get people back to events in person is starting to increase. Have you noticed that in the US with some companies?
Yes, most definitely. And having been both with New Skin at a time when we started going through that and with Arbonne, there is this excitement in the boardroom to some extent to say, look, our expense picture for this year was just reduced because we can do everything that we used to do without this event or without this in-person meeting and get the same results. And what I've experienced, and I think what now a lot of the companies that I'm consulting with and talking with, their experience is they thought that would be the case, but they didn't realize the unintended consequences of lack of funding or lack of in-person connection. And over time, those deposits in that bank account that feels like an expense are really building the equity and building, the relationships and building the strength. And really fundamentally, Sam, it's about investing in the key value driver and the key creation of value that is direct selling. And that's in the individuals who are participating as the salespeople, as the consultants. And without that investment in them, there is a reduced return on, the sales and the ability to find customers and the ability to sell the products, which we're all dependent upon to create an enterprise that has ongoing sustainability. And that sustainability assumption early in COVID and during COVID that you could replace in some ways either in-person events or through technology. And I think this is a larger question, is can you replace through an app or through a Zoom meeting, can you replace the benefits of in-person or the benefits or the power of person-to-person selling? And that's really that intersection of technology and innovation and what's personal and what's powerful. And I think most companies, I'm pleased to report after the last couple of months, I spent some time with the World Federation of Direct Sellers Associations in Dubai in October. And
yes,
I was
this is
actually
my next question.
good.
Great
Well,
segue. So tell us about that, because I was really excited to ask you a little bit more about the fact that you attended that. And that event, actually, just to give people a little bit of background, the World Federation of Direct Selling normally meet every 3 years, but of course, because of COVID, they were unable to do that. And so this was the first meeting in 6 years. And so it was a really big event. We were hoping to be there, but unfortunately, we were literally due to have a baby a couple of weeks later. So we were not allowed to fly. But I'm really keen to hear from you about how that event went and what your biggest takeaways were.
Well, and congratulations on the new addition to your family. That's a wonderful thing. Well, we did miss you in Dubai. It was a great event, but it really did highlight that pendulum that has swung from technology focus and even the use of the word affiliate in terms of marketing and really customer acquisition as being the sole focus, to how do we invest in our sales, independent entrepreneurs? How do we invest in events? How do we make sure we're not losing the power of what has been built over many, many decades? And I think if I had one of the key takeaways for me was that people are very, very keen now to make sure they don't lose the power of those individuals when they come together with a common purpose and for the culture itself. And that has to happen in in-person events, even to the extent that, us getting together after 6 years at the World Federation, we all felt that. And so, it's a similar dynamic, and we have to invest and we have to create the right balance. And obviously there are many, many uses for technology, and for you and me to get together without having to be in person in Australia is a great thing for me. I'd love to have you here in the States, but we know that's a long flight and fairly significant.
We'll be back soon.
Come back and see us. But it's really that balance and making sure there's not a lopsided equation. And I think out of COVID, we all saw that equation got a little lopsided on technology as the driver, and that was not sustainable. And I think that's where many of the companies last year tried to reorient around what are the key value drivers.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's funny. We obviously work in technology. Social media is what we teach. It's what we're passionate about. But the really funny thing about this is there is a really, really fine line and a careful balance here. And, Greg and I have observed particularly the last 3-4 years, there's been this skew towards technology, we believe, being overused, particularly in this industry, which is such a people-to-people industry. And rather than it being used as a tool to really enhance that person-to-person connection, it's in many cases being used to replace. And, this has made our jobs really interesting, because, we get a lot of people, particularly companies, coming to us saying, we want you to get everyone online, show everyone how to do everything online. But really what we're here to do is help people to use the online tools that they have to build those relationships and keep what makes this industry so powerful, which is that person-to-person connection. And we're seeing this as well, of course, with conferences and events, with, the online, everything happening online. Your trainings was another thing we were going to talk to you about today. A lot of trainings are being conducted purely online now, which it's a great tool. It's a great option and opportunity, but there's there's so much to be said for that in-person opportunity. And I did want to, because we've got a lot of listeners here that are the field, that are the consultants and distributors. I would say probably 85% of our listeners are people in the field who are trying to build their businesses right now. And, one of the things I would really encourage you guys, if you're listening to this podcast right now, support your company's conferences and events, because in order to really invest in you and for them to put that budget towards investing in you, which you want them to do, you also need to be willing to step into those opportunities that are provided for you. And I think sometimes, particularly when there's something provided by the company for free, whether it's a training, whether it's an event, sometimes we don't value it because we haven't invested in it ourselves. But I really want to encourage you guys, your companies are spending huge dollars on putting these events on in order to grow you, to expand you, to support you, to really invest in that culture in the company. And the one really important thing that you guys can do is support those events by attending and encouraging others in your teams to attend as well, because that's what gets the companies putting more time and effort into those events going forward, and really, they're pivotal to the growth of company, of implementation of culture, of so many things. And it's those companies where they have those events and are getting those support right now that seem to be the ones that are starting to really move forward, into this next season, which we'll talk about shortly. What's your take on that from a distributor perspective, Tyler? Are you seeing, similar thing to what we are in? People seem to be a little bit hesitant to attend these events at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, my experience, Sam, has been, a lot of companies have had a bit of a evolution, if you will, in terms of what's the role and responsibility of the company and what's the role and responsibility of the consultants and the entrepreneurs, and how do they divide and conquer and make sure that their allocation of those resources are collectively done well. Yeah. And so even we have some consultants who have their own events. And so they will have an event and they will say, if everyone comes to my event, then that maybe it's a month or 6 weeks before a corporate event. And so they think we already had an event. And so then the corporate event might not have as many attendees, to your point. And so I think it's really working together, as the company, and from the company perspective, which is the side I've always been on. It's how do I support the number of events and the quality of the events that an individual consultant needs? How do I support them in their events when they need an event? And how do they support us building the right event for them? And the timing and the frequency and the cadence of those things. And then, of course, it's about the resources, as you mentioned, which are very intensive, and they can be very expensive, but they can be very powerful. And so it's really coming together with the field and listening to those voices. And as you said, for your listeners and for others in this industry, it's about making sure that your voice is heard and that you're having that dialogue with your corporate leaders and with your home office, because those home office leaders want to support you. They want to develop things that help you. And if they're not, they would love to hear about how they could make what they are doing in the event, or the number of events, or the quality of the events be better. And then when those things are working well together, that's a great recipe for success, when that really is a partnership. And I have seen that sort of where the company thinks, our event's the only thing anyone should worry about. And that's really not a right approach. On the other hand, I think the field and the independent entrepreneurs need to understand that they can take advantage, and that there is great power. I have a whole nother, we could talk another hour. I have a set of principles I call the power principles for direct selling. And there's 8 of them, but one of the very fundamental power principles for a successful direct selling company is the power of alignment. And it really is having the field, top leaders and business builders and part-time consultants and everything in between aligned with the company's support and the customer service agents and the compensation plan. And when you have all those things aligned, it's a very powerful thing. If you get disconnected a little bit, where the field doesn't feel like they're being supported or heard, the company doesn't feel like they understand what the needs of their ultimate customers are, which are entrepreneurs, then those disconnections or that failure of alignment can take a lot of power out of the growth of a business. But when you get that alignment working, then the power really comes into the business, and everyone is on the same page, if you will. And that means everyone's showing up at an event that's been put on with full support and full rally, and take advantage of all that energy that comes from that alignment. I was about 16 years old when I first went to college, and I had the opportunity to go from Alaska to Utah for my first semester of college. And I had some friends. I arrived a little bit early in the summer, and they were having a weekend event, and they were going up to a horse racing track. And I'd never been around horse racing or any like live animal events like that. But they invited me to go with them. And so in person, I went and witnessed my first horse race. And I don't know if you've ever been to like the Gold Coast or any of those events, but when you get to like a thoroughbred racing event, there's something in the air that really it's adrenaline. And it is this excitement and this energy that comes when everyone's there, and you have these amazing animals that are running, and everyone's cheering, and it's just this atmosphere. And I recall that was like the first experience in my life where I felt that kind of like in-person adrenaline happening. Yeah. The next time I felt that, Sam, was when I went to a direct selling convention when I was in college, and I immediately could feel that it was the same energy.
Yeah.
And that energy does not happen through a Zoom call very often. It's pretty hard to get that same level of physical electricity and energy in the air. And so it's really important to have those things. But you need everybody there, and you want everyone to experience it. And I think just one other technical note on events, one of the things that's made some of the events less powerful, in my opinion, from a corporate and a consultant perspective, is the ability to zoom in and watch it.
Yeah.
And I understand the need and the rationale for a person who's not able to attend in person to get the benefit of that event. But I think too many people are using that as a reason to not attend at all.
Yep.
And they're missing out on some of the fundamental benefits that happen from in person. Even though you think you're watching and you get the experience and you have all the information and you know what the product launch is, there's still a really large number of elements that are missing from that in-person event. And I actually, my recommendation to some of the companies that I've worked with is that they not allow Zoom attendees.
Yeah. We're seeing more and more of this now. Yeah.
You can only get this in-person event to help bring back that togetherness in some ways. So we'll see what happens. It's still going to be a balance, I think, but over time,
it's such a good point you bring up. And I think it's a really difficult one, because we've got this incredible technology that allows us to reach more people, and maybe reach those people that never would have come to an event, which is great. But you make a really good point, and it's that atmosphere that you cannot replicate online. We are seeing a lot of people that are saying, hey, I'm not going to spend that money now that I don't need to spend, because I can do it online, and I'll be able to get all the information that I could have got in person, but save that money, save that time. I'll still be able to be at home with the family. But the bottom line is you don't get the same experience. I had a very similar experience to you, not with horses, Tyler, but my very first experience in the industry, I actually started my first direct selling business at 14, and I didn't attend my first conference until I was nearly 17. But I didn't understand the beauty and the incredible power of this industry until the day I walked in that room to my very first conference. And it changed the industry from being just a side hustle, side gig, little business that I was running on the side, to being something where I could be a part of something huge. And, connecting with other people that were, like-minded, inspirational. The amount of people that I connected with in that first year that I still to this day, am really close to. I had mentors that I worked with for many years, and they all came from those events. And the thing is, you just can't replicate that online. And it's a really tough one, because not offering the online version is hard because, of course, we want to be able to reach those people that otherwise couldn't have attended. But you don't want people making the decision not to attend because they've got this option at the same time. So it is a difficult balance. And, we get to sort of watch that I guess, tug of war from our angle because, often we are providing trainings, in a hybrid sense. But whenever a company says to us, hey, can you do virtual or can you do in person? Our answer is always, we can do both, but we highly, highly, highly recommend in person because the connection, the trust built, the atmosphere is just not replicatable online. So yeah, look, I hear you. And actually this sort of brings me to my next question. And you are obviously whilst passionate about the industry, you're also passionate about modernizing the industry, technology moving forward, but there is that balancing act. And I wanted to ask you about this because I think it's a really difficult balancing act. There's a big push and pull in the industry about not losing what makes direct selling great, but also in modernizing our industry, which is such an old one. And so, what do you feel is really important to keep that makes direct selling so powerful, but also, by the same token, what do you believe we need to change in order to move forward?
Yeah, it's really a lot of the work that I've done over the last several years is that question. It's what are the foundational elements that are important to keep. I think for me it's self improvement, it's empowerment, it's in person, it's human powered. And all of the things that entails it's a human powered business. That's the value.
I love that.
And I think on the other side of the equation, it's technology, and technology is an enabler. And I look at it in terms of, when I graduated from university, we were still going to the library to use a computer to get information and look things up. Because we didn't have our own devices. We didn't have our own laptop. We didn't have, I had a home computer, but it wasn't something that was connected to the internet.
I don't want to admit it. I remember this time. It was one computer for the whole grade.
but we had a telephone, but we didn't say, the telephone is now the answer to human relationships, right? We just used the tool.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, as I look at technologies and I look at innovations, there's new tools. And there are certainly things that are better than a fax machine than what we had in 1987.
Yeah.
But those things are still tools. And whether that's a link that you can send to somebody and spam people with email, it's still a tool. It is not the replacement for the value drivers of the business. So to me, when I look at anything, Sam, that's about what are the things that create the value, it is those things like independence. What can create more independence? It is those things like information and quality of information, and not necessarily quantity, because today information is ubiquitous and you can get a million different answers to any question you want, and almost so many that you're horrified with. You're paralyzed by the number of options. So information is still an important component, but the tool that you get it through is not the critical driver. So when I'm looking at the future of direct selling and the innovation that's happening, it's how do we deploy those tools into that framework of human-powered, connected commerce. In some ways, I call it the experiential economy as well. It's how do you create an economy, but also focus on the experiences that are a part of that. And the better the experience, and the better, and those experiences are better when they're more personal. They're better when they're more relatable. They're better when they're tailored and focused on what you need in your life at that moment. They're better when someone cares about you. I mean, I've ordered a lot of things on Amazon over the years, but I have yet to have a telephone conversation or have anybody from Amazon feel like they know me or that they care about Tyler Whitehead.
Yeah.
I assume they do, but I'm a number and a dollar sign, not necessarily a relationship. So it's focusing on those things. I think the relationship aspect, the connectedness piece, and then deploy the tools. And there's a lot that companies need to do mostly in the back office, in the information flow, in the basic tools and services, your home office app. And can you get the information you need quickly and easily? And is it simple? Or are you spending time trying to sort through 5 different types of connection to the company? The more smooth we can make those engagements, the better that experience can be on the technical administrative details, the better we can create those experiences that are meaningful and that actually are the powerful competitive advantage that direct selling has versus these other ways of acquiring a product, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the other things that, we're battling with at the moment, of course, with, these tools, the technology, is the training side of things, and it's a really tough one because, of course, for many companies, it's, hey, we want to train internally, or we can bring external trainers in. But what's important right now, where in your opinion are we lacking and need to catch up from a digital and training perspective as an industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's really an important part of helping empower people, and it's giving them the information they need based on where they're at in their business.
Yeah.
So one of the complexities of delivering powerful training is that there's a wide variety of capabilities and abilities in sales. There's a wide variety of abilities in connecting with other people. And not everyone starts their direct selling journey at the same place.
Yeah.
And so building a tool, it's not a one size fits all approach that will ever work. And so I think the complexity that many companies have faced is they've tried to build something that's generic, that's, as we say in technology, scalable, that then you take that tool and give it to everybody, and then everybody's better. But everybody needs a different level of success. And I think that's where the leaders come into the picture very strongly. Yeah. And so it really is something that's empowering leaders to develop and institute their approach to building. And that may be different from team to team. It may be different from passion to passion, product to product. But from a company perspective, building something that is customizable framework is super important. And then allowing the leaders or the consultants to pull out the things that they need at the moment they need them. So they might be an early entrepreneur. They might be somebody who just wants to share a product here and there. They have a particular set of information and tactics that can help them. And the company can be a part of serving that up. Yeah. But ultimately, it's about tailoring it to the needs where they're at in their business at the time and moment. And that truly is where innovation can uniquely customize, millions of different approaches to the business based on your brand and based on your approach can help support those leaders. So to me, it's really about customizing and still making sure we don't take it out of into the realm of, well, there's one approach for every single person, or even from a persona by persona perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point, and something that we've definitely seen being such a challenge is that here's the one way and everyone do this and, follow this exact recipe. And we often talk about it like formulas versus recipes. You can have a framework, but the exact methodology needs to be customized to the individual and the individual's business. And so I love that approach. And I think the other thing when it comes to training and also this industry as a whole, I want to talk about, the elephant in the room here for a minute. And this is something that is such a challenge. I would have thought that in this day and age, it wasn't such a big deal right now, but definitely we're still battling against industry reputation. And, training impacts that. Technology is impacting that significantly, because what used to be, only within personal networks is now being spread globally because of social media, is of course that reputation of the industry, particularly around that, the pyramid selling side of things. And You and I both know that pyramid selling is both illegal and not what the direct selling industry, is about. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that it's not what our industry does. There have been, instances where, companies have done the wrong things over the years, but one of the things that's really powerful about the Direct Selling Association and companies associated with that, of course, is that ensuring that people are doing the right thing, that companies are doing the right thing, and pyramid selling is not a problem is a big part of that. But, I want to come back to pyramid selling for a second, because I've been seeing of recent times more and more talk around this, an association between direct selling companies and pyramid selling. And I just want to ask you around this, how do we get over that stigma? And, what are you observing as far as industry reputation in this space? And I know that there've been a few instances recently that you and I have talked about where this has, again, come to the forefront in the media as well with some companies recently. I just wanted to get your take on really pyramid selling, the industry, how we get past this stigma. Is this something you think is just going to keep going, or can we actually, move past this finally?
Yeah, I don't know, Sam. I think my experience, and remember, I started as general counsel to a publicly traded direct selling company who was very concerned about the impact of the negative reputation of direct sellers, or from MLM, pyramid scheme types of approaches.
Yeah,
and I think anytime there is a lot of opportunity and rewards financially, there are going to be a few bad actors who take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's true of any industry, whether you're talking about real estate, or whether you're talking about cryptocurrency, or whether you're talking about Wall Street itself in the U.S. There are people where there's money to be made. There are the fringe elements who will arrive and decide to break the law or disobey what are appropriate norms of doing things in an honest and upright way. And so I guess I'll answer your last question. Will we ever get past it? I doubt it. I think there's so many, there's $190 billion out there in the direct selling industry. And for me to say no bad actors are going to want to take advantage of, and slice off some part of that for themselves and maybe end up in jail as a result, and take that risk. I can't say that there's going to be a day when we won't find people who find that amount of market share appealing to them as bad actors. So that aside, I think the opportunity today is that with transparency and with information, and good information, we're actually seeing some great benefits of the things that direct selling does that are powerful for communities. They're powerful for humans. They're powerful for women and men and everybody who participates. They improve lives. And so the flip side of that, Sam, is that there's so many amazing things that are being done. The foundations and the charities that are associated with people, the families that are improved when a single person finds a direct selling opportunity that they can improve their life with. And what we need to be more about, and this is one of the initiatives with the World Federation, is we need to make sure we're publicizing loudly and proudly all those millions of people whose lives are improved.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, by comparison, the people who might have had a misrepresentation or experienced a bad experience associated with direct selling is 0.000% of the total. The vast majority of interactions are positive. It's just unfortunate that the negative ones end up getting the spotlight shined on them a little bit more. And so that creates, I think, a misunderstanding of how bright our future is, how bright direct selling is in terms of the overall impact on the globe. It's just that negative news sells. And so that becomes somewhat of the narrative. And just one other final point that I would make, reputation to me is all about the consistency between the message and the expectation and the experience. So when those things are perfectly matched, you have a very, very, very high reputation score. So if someone enters into a conversation about direct selling or has an opportunity to learn about your product, and you tell them about the amazing things that your product does, or the business opportunity, the financial rewards that can come from building a team or selling products to people who need your products, when that narrative or that explanation or that story matches what they experience through their interaction with you or through their interaction with your product or through their interaction with the business opportunity, they will be over the moon excited about their experience. And that will result in them having a good experience and a good reputation to share with others. And so the more things those are consistent, our reputation goes up. When there's gaps and people are told something that doesn't line up with what their experience is, they start to feel like there was a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation in some way. And that can create all of the issues associated with a negative experience. So matching those things up is really the effort on a company by company level, on an industry level, and making sure that people are sharing the opportunity. And I know there's frustrations too, Sam, about not being able to share the high side of that equation as much as we would like, because I wasn't born to be in the bottom 10% or the middle half. At least I hope I try to rise above that and say I can be in the top 10% of whatever, my class in school or my sales numbers at the end of the month. I want to be at the top. And so people tend to want to show that potential. They want to show that opportunity. But it's really important to give a balanced impression and make sure people know the whole range of opportunities. And that doesn't mean we can't talk about the high side or the big opportunity that's there. It is, but we need to be realistic and say most people achieve a certain amount. Here's what that looks like. You could be special. You could do more than that. And it takes work and it takes effort and all the things that I know. All the good companies are out there sharing this exact message right now. And that will, again, continue to be a part of that reputation improvement. But I think we can do a better job of sharing the amazing things that a direct selling opportunity can do for people and for the products themselves. I mean, the products speak for themselves, and focusing there is also a really important way for people to make sure the reputation stays intact. Because it's not just a focus on the financial rewards. It's really, how do those financial rewards come? Through sharing these amazing products that people need, and they would rather buy them from you than get online and find them from somebody that probably doesn't know their phone number.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point in there as well, which is really at the end of the day, this is a personal experience. It's a personal relationship, and it's that one-to-one. And there, with technology, there can be this temptation to go big, and treat everyone a little bit like a number. Hey, if they can do it on Amazon, I can do it in my business too. But you bring up a really great point, which is it's about that personal experience. It's about how you use the product, what you do in the business, and people having that personal connection to the company, the products, the industry, rather than, a blanket statement around, what you can do in the business. It's more about tailoring the conversation to the individual, because everyone is individual and everyone has different needs and everyone's going to have a different experience. And so, I think there's this assumption that if I go one-to-one, it's going to take a lot longer. But the bottom line is you're going to have a much greater success long-term than going one-to-many. And so while technology is great and we want to be using those tools to be able to reach more people, when it comes down to it, that personal experience and your personal experience is what's really powerful. And it's what makes this industry what it is. And so sharing those stories, sharing how you use the product, sharing what you get up to in the business, and tailoring those conversations to people individually, I don't think we can overestimate the power of that. But it also impacts reputation, right? Which is really important. Tyler, I feel like we can, keep talking here for days about some of this stuff. And I'm really keen to chat with you next year again around, whatever this new very exciting venture is that you're going to be announcing. And of course, those power principles as well. I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about that. But for right now, because we do need to wrap up, I do have 4 of my favorite questions I want to ask you. Are you ready for me to hit you with these before we finish up?
Yeah, that would be great.
Let's have some fun with this. So I would love to hear from you. What is your favorite book for our accelerator book list?
So one of my favorites that I've gone back to a couple of times over the last 6 months is Simon Sinek's Why.
Mm-hmm.
It's just is so powerful to go back and find what it is that's driving you personally.
Yeah.
And whether that's an organizational wide discussion or with your team or on an individual basis, I think it's super powerful. So for me, I love all his books. They're great, but that's one that kind of sticks with me.
Yeah, one of my favorites too. So really, really great book. And I think I've read that one twice. I've listened to it once or twice on the plane. It's a brilliant book. Highly recommend anyone to check that one out for sure. Tyler, if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would it be and why?
I would want to fly. I would like to be. I'd like to be able to be transported into space. So I've always been sort of a closet astronomer / wannabe astronaut. So for me, going to the moon, going to the stars.
Wow.
So for me, it would be something like I could fly in space.
I was going to say flying is probably the most common answer, but then you took it to a whole new level, and I've not had that answer before. So that's kind of cool. If you could go anywhere in space though, any planet, explore anything, where would you be headed?
Oh, I think I mean, Mars is the first choice for me because I think it's probably the most realistic. That's the practical side of me, Sam, is saying Mars might be doable.
Is this because Mars is supposed to be most like Earth? Is this the right?
There's supposedly water on that frozen planet, so there's the elements that would sustain life eventually. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm an explorer at heart, and that's one of the things I love about direct selling is it gives us the opportunity to go explore human boundaries and what that looks like. So,
all right, watch this space.
That would be an exciting thing for me.
And Tyler, what's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, I think I'm going to flub it here, but it's a quote by William Steindl Rast that talks a little bit about gratitude, and that the root of happiness and the root of joy doesn't come from being happy, but happiness comes from gratitude. And once you're grateful, then you can be joyful about everything that you experience in your life. So for me, it's a practice I try and maintain is that, spend a moment or two every day expressing gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that can color and change your perception of whatever challenges, because we have them every day.
Yeah.
Every day we get up, we have those things. And so being grateful is really important to me. And I think it's one of those key principles of great leaders. Successful people tend to be very grateful for their friends, for their colleagues, for their circumstances, even when the circumstances may not be something that we would look at and want.
Yeah.
If you can be in those circumstances and be grateful for what you're learning or what you're experiencing or what can come out of it, it's a really powerful tool. So for me, that's probably one of my best quotes.
I love that. I've actually got something very similar in my kitchen that says, when you're grateful for what you have everything you need. And I think that's very, very true. And it can be a challenging practice at times, but it's a powerful practice. So by far my favorite question on every interview, and I'm keen to hear your answer to this. If you could go back in time and say one thing to your past self, what would that be?
It has to be the same thing I tell my children every time. I have 5 beautiful children and 4 amazing grands now. And I find myself saying this more and more frequently, but I said it as they grew up. And I think if I could go back to myself, it would say, the only thing you have to fear is not dreaming big enough.
Wow.
And just dream bigger. If I could go back to myself when I was 12 or 16 or 24, or 34 or 54, I would probably say dream bigger, Tyler, because there's so much potential. And And I've been fortunate enough to experience almost everything that I've dreamed of doing or accomplishing. I've managed to be, if not right there, pretty darn close. And so the only regret I have, if I had any, would be I haven't gone big enough. So dream bigger. Go back to your prior self and tell Tyler and each of you, make sure you know. And I tell my kids that all the time. It's like you're only limited by what you think you can accomplish.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I love that. And what a great note to finish on. Thank you so much, Tyler, for taking the time out to share with us a little bit about, what's been happening in the industry and what you've been up to. And look, I'm so excited to see what comes next for you. So thanks for taking the time out to join us today.
You're very welcome, Sam. It's been my pleasure, and congratulations to all the good work that you're doing with Oxano and your team there and supporting the industry. And really, really great to see you today again, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you. And look, we will chat further in 2024 and hopefully get you back in to share a bit about what's going on with some new and exciting things. So again, thanks for taking the time out. Really great that we're able to use this technology to chat from one side of the globe to the other. And look, I guess I just want to finish up by saying I'm so excited for, yes, where this industry has been. And it's great chatting with someone who's just as passionate about the direct selling industry as I am, but I'm really excited about where it's going. And, thanks for sharing a little bit about that today. And, I'm excited for 2024. So watch this space, I think. I think direct selling is about to take on a new life, a new lease of life in this next year. So thanks again, Tyler. And thanks to our beautiful listeners for tuning in today. It's great to have you guys, and we'll see you again on the podcast next week. Bye for now.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.